To the average normal person viewer, bodybuilding looks like a beauty pageant. And really, it is to some degree. So today I wanted to actually break down the criteria that the judges judge the physiques on and the entire process of how bodybuilding shows are judged. Hey guys, welcome back to the Champion's Path. Today is a different video from what we usually do. We usually do informative videos. This is informative, but our niche is usually nutrition or training advice. But since this is a bodybuilding channel and building a great physique, all about that, and we do the World of Bodybuilding podcast now, which you should check out, which is all about the news of bodybuilding and everything happening in the world of bodybuilding, I actually wanted to break down what actually goes into judging physiques on a bodybuilding stage. It's not even a very transparent sport at that. They may show us what the scores are at the end, but they don't really go into depth about what goes into that score that they gave a certain athlete, why they placed a certain athlete above another one. Let's first get into the 4 factors that judges are going to look at to judge the physiques. These factors actually aren't all as important for every class, every division, as some of the other ones might be. For example, women's bikini, mass matters a lot less than open bodybuilding, obviously. But those 4 factors that the judges are looking at are size, conditioning, structure, and shape. There are other things that judges look at. Maybe a guy fades or maybe a guy's too watery, but all in all, these are going to be the 4 main factors that a judge is going to look at in order to determine who's placing ahead of who. And I'll break these down really quickly so we're all on the same page. Size is obviously pretty self-explanatory. It's just the amount of muscle mass someone is carrying. Conditioning is just how shredded a person is. Shape is actually how the muscles fit onto the skeletal structure. Think of it as long biceps versus short biceps. Everyone has different muscle bellies, and those are just how round a muscle is. Ideally, you want to be very round as you can be. You want to have a nice sweep to your muscles, and overall just a nice flowing physique. And that ties in with the last category, which is structure. And structure is just your bone structure mainly. You want to have wide shoulders, just about for every class, wide shoulders and a small waist, small joints. And this also ties in, again, with the shape. You want to have very big, round muscle bellies while having a nice flowing physique. The judges use those 4 categories to determine who is on top. However, different things get rewarded in different divisions and even at different shows. For example, the Arnold usually tends to reward guys with smaller waists and more aesthetic physiques, while the Olympia is usually going to favor more mass, more conditioning, just the best freaks, the best of the best, objectively, as objective as it can be. And the person that wins a show does not have to have a 10 out of 10 on all 4 of those categories. They can maybe have more size, less conditioning, but if they have more shape and aesthetics, they may beat out some of these other guys that may purely just have mass conditioning but do not flow as well. Recently, a guy by the name of Andrew Jack won the Texas Pro. He was not the most shredded guy there, and he probably wasn't even the biggest guy there in terms of actual muscle mass, especially pound for pound. However, he was a 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10 on his shape and structure, and the conditioning and overall size was favorable enough to his other competitors that he actually edged them out. Just remember, the most conditioned guy doesn't win, the most shapely guy doesn't win, the guy with the most size doesn't win. It's usually a combination of multiple factors. I want to go over the order of a show. So there are usually 3 areas that the judges actually judge: the pre-judging, the posing routines, and finals. I do say posing very lightly because unfortunately it's a bit of a lost art in bodybuilding, and they definitely don't take the judging for posing as seriously as they used to. But on most of these scorecards, at least on some of the bigger shows, they are going to at least somewhat score the posing routines. So what happens in each of these 3 areas of a bodybuilding show? Let's start with prejudging. And prejudging, it's usually either in the morning, or if it's a 2-day show, it'll be on, let's say, Friday night, and then the finals will be on Saturday night. If it's just a 1-day show, then the prejudging will usually be in the morning, and then the finals will be at night. In that prejudging, they're going to do a couple things. They're going to have every guy come out individually and just kind of show off their physiques, usually making them hit the mandatory poses. And the mandatory poses are just 8 poses that every bodybuilder is compared on. After everyone has done their individual posing, not their routine yet, this is just introduction, then they will compare these different bodybuilders in what we call call-outs. These call-outs can range from 6, maybe even upwards of 8 people, depending on how deep the lineup is or how stiff the competition is, to maybe even a top 2. So when these bodybuilders are in their call-outs, they'll shuffle them around, so maybe they can compare the guy over here with the guy in the center, and then they'll compare the guy in the center with another guy, just so everyone gets a fair comparison. And usually the guys moving towards the middle are usually the guys in head. So in these call-outs, they're going to compare every bodybuilder using the mandatory poses. And there are 8 mandatory poses: front double bicep, front lat spread, back double bicep, back lat spread, side tricep, side chest, abdominals and thighs, and then the most muscular. They also still do quarter turns, but I do not think they're judged as heavily as they used to be. And this used to be called the symmetry round, just grouped into prejudging. The symmetry round was a way that we can see the entire flow of the physique from 4 sides. They would face you head on in a front relaxed, they would face both sides in a side relaxed, and then they would face the rear in a back relaxed. This is to see the symmetry and overall flow of the physiques. It would maybe give a little bit of an edge to those guys that had prettier physiques with the smaller waists. So they'll compare them, they'll take their scores, they'll send them off. Then they'll come back for finals. So in finals, they're going to do basically the same thing that they did at prejudging. However, instead of the individual routines where they just come out and introduce, they'll switch those to actual posing routines that the competitors are supposed to have worked on throughout their preps. And then they'll get to display that, as well as more comparisons, just like they did at prejudging. This has also been called the confirmation round, and that's just basically to confirm whatever the judges decided at prejudging. So they'll put the guys in the call-outs again, maybe shuffle them around a bit, maybe see who's faded from prejudging to finals, if anybody has, and they'll just, again, confirm what they saw at prejudging. There's no different judging criteria or anything. It's just to see who has held on from the morning or the day before. So you know the order of the show and you know the basic criteria that judges judge on, but what about the point system that they actually use to place the bodybuilders? Well, bodybuilding is a sport where the lowest score wins. You'll have a panel of judges, and this can range from, depending on the size of the show, around 5 to 7, usually around there. These judges will mainly look at those 4 factors, like I said, and of course a couple other nuances on stage, and then place these guys where they think. Let's run a real-life example. In 2021, Chris Bumstead placed first with the highest score he possibly could, the lowest score he possibly could, which is a 5. How did they come to that conclusion? So they had 7 judges at the Olympia. All these 7 judges, and they took out the highest and the lowest, they took out the outliers. All these judges had Chris in first place. That's number 1 for Judge 1, 1 for 2, 1 for 3, 1 for 4, 1 for 5. And all those first places add up to 5 points. If someone were to get straight first, we call that a perfect score. That is 5 points if there are 5 judges. And if someone were to get straight seconds, because everyone would have that person placed in second place, the first judge would have second place, and so on, it would equal 10. 2 times the 5 judges, every one of the 5 judges has that guy in second place, that equals 10. That is a straight second place. To review, they're going to take out the highs and lows of the judging and then make everyone place every bodybuilder. And then they're going to add up those scores, and whoever has the lowest score wins. And that's really all I can tell you. This is not really a transparent process, like I said. We have these scorecards, and I can show you. They release them after every show. Here are the scorecards. Here's what the judges decided. And those are usually signed by some kind of official or the head judge. However, we don't really know how they come to that decision. A lot of these YouTubers online, and I'm not bashing anyone, they show the poses, right? They'll compare Nick Walker and Hadi Chupin, and they'll go by pose analysis. However, that's not exactly how the bodybuilding judges do it. I know it may seem like it, because then why even have the mandatories? But really, from what I've gathered and what other judges have said, it's not necessarily pose for pose rather than the judging the physique as a whole. Now, I'm sure plenty of them actually do take notes, like, well, I think this guy's a better tricep, and I think this guy's in between these 2 guys, and like I said, I'm sure they take plenty of notes, because again, it's a live show, they can't go back and review footage. I'm sure they take plenty of notes, and they probably do, to some extent, go pose by pose. But really, from what I gather, it's not necessarily just that. It's not this person wins this pose, this person wins this pose. That's definitely a huge element, but it's more about the physique as a whole. And that's why you have people like Sean Roden beating Phil Heath in year 2018. I think when you go pose for pose, Phil Heath probably won at least 4 poses, so that's half, if not more, honestly. But overall, Phil's physique is just tarnished by that huge gut problem he had in 2018, and that's why I think Sean Roden pulled out a victory ahead of him. And it goes back to those 4 factors. Again, you don't have to beat everyone in every single pose, and you don't have to beat everyone in every single factor, criteria of judging. A guy that has a more complete overall balanced physique is going to do very well against someone that has a very glaring flaw. But hopefully we get some more transparency about how the judges reach their conclusions, because although we get the scorecards, we don't really know the details that go into it. Like I said, I'm sure posing by pose goes into it, and I'm sure they look at a whole host of factors, not just the 4 I listed, but we don't really know why, how, anything about the very specifics of the judging process. Not to mention, this sport is extremely subjective. One judge may like some other person's physique, and another judge may not like it at all. Not to mention, if you have judges in back-to-back shows, their opinions just may have changed. Maybe, oh, you're not looking so good, now I really don't like you, compared to maybe this other guy that wasn't at the last show, but he's here now, and now that I see him, I think I like him a lot better than the guy that won the last show. And I do think with the amount of subjectivity that's in the sport, we do need to have some more transparency about how the judges get to their conclusions and why. Bodybuilding is definitely unlike any other sport. You don't have really any objective winners per se. You can have unanimous winners, but really, are they really objective? Because a bodybuilder might win unanimously does not mean they're winning objectively. Everyone's going to have a different opinion. Judges, fans, the bodybuilders themselves are going to have so many different opinions. But that's what makes the sport fun. It's a little just more intriguing than maybe you score a point, this team scores a point, touchdown, home run, field goal. It's a lot more subjective than just scoring points. Hopefully that shed a little bit of light on the situation, and hopefully you use that newfound knowledge to check into the World of Bodybuilding podcast every single Sunday with me, the host, at Coach_Dylan Hudson, and you can contribute to the discussion every week in that comment section of the podcast. But to make sure you catch videos like this and different videos, maybe back to our more informational videos about nutrition and training and World of Bodybuilding podcast updates, don't forget to subscribe. So thank you guys for watching. Go ahead and check out the description. It includes our website, our apparel dropping today. It's already dropped by the time this video has gone up. Our supplement affiliation. Everything is down in the description below. Again, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you guys for watching.